At my wife's birthday party, my name tag said, the other man she married at Vegas. Her boss spit out his drink and said, you mean this isn't a joke? She froze. I smiled and said, nope. Happy birthday. Want me to tell them what you did during that conference trip? I'm Neil. I'm 42 years old, and I live in Boise, Idaho. Nothing too flashy about me. I've spent most of my adult life doing IT consulting, which means I've spent a whole lot of time in front of glowing monitors, sitting in rolling chairs, sipping lukewarm coffee while answering emails that start with, hey, quick question. There's not much adrenaline in debugging server issues or reminding people to restart their routers, but it pays the bills and keeps the lights on. My life, up until recently, was predictable. Same coffee every morning, same radio station during my drive to client sites, same dog barking at the mailman every afternoon. That sort of calm rhythm suited me. After a messy breakup in my 30s, I craved quiet. And then I met Sierra. Sierra wasn't quiet. She wasn't routine. She had that kind of magnetic confidence that made people lean forward when she spoke. We met at a tech conference in Seattle. I was giving a dry talk on data encryption. She was there as a keynote speaker for a sales panel. Our eyes met near the coffee station, over a bowl of stale biscotti. I made some corny joke about the cookies being hard enough to chip teeth, and she laughed like I was the funniest guy in the room. She wasn't the kind of woman who had to try hard to be noticed. She just was. We started dating not long after. She worked for a growing tech sales firm in Portland, so we did the long-distance thing for a bit. Weekend trips, late-night video calls, texts that turned into paragraphs. I'd never met someone who seemed so sure of everything. Her job, her friends, what wine to order for dinner. She made life feel less like a series of tasks and more like something worth showing up for. A year later, she moved to Boise. We got married in a small ceremony in Morrison Park. Her dress was simple. My suit was wrinkled from the dry cleaners, but she smiled through the whole thing like she was exactly where she wanted to be. I believed her. Things started to shift about 5 years in. At first, it was subtle. She started traveling more. Her company had grown, and she'd been promoted to a regional manager role, which meant more conferences, more meetings with clients across states. She started flying out too, sometimes 3 times a month. I didn't question it too much. I trusted her. I really did. But the thing about subtle shifts is they stack up. She was harder to get a hold of when she traveled. Texts would go unanswered. Calls would be brief. She'd come home and crash on the couch, always exhausted. Her phone was never far from her hand, even in the shower. One night I asked her if everything was okay. She smiled at me, touched my cheek, and said, you worry too much. It's just work, babe. That was her answer to everything. It was around early November when the real unraveling began. Her birthday was coming up November 17th, and she wanted to throw a huge party. Not just dinner with close friends. She rented out an event space at a local winery on the outskirts of town. There were caterers, a jazz band, customized decor. She even ordered personalized wine bottles with her initials etched in the glass. I joked that it felt more like a wedding than a birthday. She just laughed and said, why not go big? I went along with it. I always went along with what Sierra wanted. I figured maybe this was her way of letting off steam from work. Maybe all that distance between us was just a phase. Then, 2 weeks before the party, something happened. It was late. She was asleep on the couch, her hair in a messy bun, laptop open on her lap. Her iPad buzzed on the coffee table. Normally, I wouldn't even glance, but I was expecting an email from a client and reached for it without thinking. That's when I saw the message. It popped up on the screen, big and bold. Can't stop thinking about that night in Vegas. Counting the days till we're alone again. Alec, at first, I froze. Thought it must be spam. A joke. Something from a movie. Vegas? She told me she hated Vegas. Too loud. Too fake. Said she skipped a sales summit there because she couldn't stand the crowds. I scrolled. Heart thudding. There were more messages. Dozens. Pictures. Voice notes. An email confirmation for a hotel room at the Bellagio. A selfie of the two of them in robes, holding champagne flutes. And then, the final gut punch. A PDF attachment of a marriage certificate. Clark County. Sierra and Alec. Married. In Vegas. 2 months ago. I stared at that screen like it was some kind of optical illusion. My ears were ringing. The dog barked at something outside, and I jumped like I'd been caught doing something wrong. The room spun, but instead of waking her up and demanding answers, I closed the iPad. Sat there for hours, numb, listening to the sound of her breathing. The next day, while she was at work, I backed everything up. Sent the files to my private email. Printed out the marriage certificate. I even drove to a local law office and asked if something like this was legally binding. The lawyer looked up from the document and said, if she was already married to you at the time, this is bigamy. You have grounds for divorce, fraud, and possibly criminal charges. I didn't tell Sierra. Not yet. I needed time. Her party was approaching. And somewhere between heartbreak and fury, I decided I wouldn't confront her in private. I'd do it in the place where she'd least expect it. I went online and ordered 70 customized name tags. Each one read, "Hi, I'm the other man Sierra married in Vegas. I even had one made for myself, in bold red letters. I printed the marriage certificate on a poster board, had it mounted on foam core at a local print shop. Cost me $60, but it felt like justice in cardboard form. The night of the party, I showed up a few minutes late. People were already mingling, sipping wine, nibbling on tiny crostini. The jazz band was playing something upbeat. Sierra was in the middle of the room, glowing in a dark green cocktail dress, holding a glass of Prosecco and laughing like the world adored her. She spotted me and smiled. You made it. I didn't say anything. Just walked in with the poster board tucked under my arm and the name tag on my chest. People chuckled when they read it. Thought it was part of some elaborate party joke. One guy asked if we were doing a skit. Her boss, a tall, broad-shouldered man named Ron, walked over and squinted at the tag. Then he looked at me. You mean this isn't a joke? Sierra laughed nervously, like she didn't know how to respond. I looked Ron dead in the eyes. Nope. Happy birthday, Sierra. Want me to tell them what you did during that conference trip? Everything stopped. The music, the laughter. Even the servers paused with trays midair. Sierra stared at me. I saw her pupils shrink. Saw the blood drain from her face. She pulled me aside, nearly yanking my arm out of the socket. What the hell is wrong with you? I kept my voice low. Calm. You tell me. Is Alec coming to the party? Or is he too busy sending you love notes from Vegas? She opened her mouth, then closed it. I'd never seen her at a loss for words before. You married him, I said, while you were still married to me. That's not just infidelity, Sierra. That's a felony. She started crying. Whispered, it was a mistake. We were drunk. It didn't mean anything. I didn't know it was real. You've been emailing him for months. Booking hotels. Taking photos. You didn't accidentally do that. She looked over her shoulder, at the room full of co-workers, family, and friends. Please, Neil. Not here. Don't do this here. But I wasn't angry anymore. Not like I was the day I found out. I was just done. I held up the mounted certificate, walked to the table near the dessert bar, and leaned it against the wall. Then I left. I didn't yell. Didn't make a speech. Didn't cause a scene. I let the truth sit there, as loud and obvious as the jazz band once was. I drove home in silence. My phone buzzed nonstop that night. Texts, voicemails, missed calls. I didn't respond to any of them. I woke up the next morning to nearly 40 missed calls. 15 were from Sierra. The rest were scattered between her sister, her mother, a couple of her co-workers, and oddly enough Ron, her boss. My voicemail was full. I didn't listen to any of them. Not right away. Instead, I took the dog for a walk. The air was cold and sharp, and the streets were still. I walked past familiar houses, the same fences I'd seen for years, the same neighborhood kids' bikes tossed carelessly on lawns. Everything looked the same, and yet it all felt different. Like I was observing the world from behind glass. It took her until noon to show up at my door. She looked exhausted. Her hair was pulled back into a bun, makeup smudged at the corners. She didn't knock, she banged. Over and over. Neil, open the door. Please. I thought about pretending I wasn't home, but the dog was already barking his head off. I cracked it open. Why are you here? She looked stunned, like I'd slapped her with the question. We need to talk. No, you need to talk. I already know everything. She glanced around like someone might be listening, then pushed her way in. It was stupid. I was stupid. I didn't think it would go this far. I didn't say anything. I walked into the kitchen and poured myself a glass of water. She followed, wringing her hands. It was supposed to be a one-time thing. It was a drunken dare. I didn't even remember half of it until we got back to the hotel. I didn't think they'd actually file it. Then why were you emailing him after? I asked. My voice came out hollow. Why the hotels? The selfies? The messages about missing him? She froze. I don't know. You do. You just don't want to say it. She sat at the kitchen island. It started before Vegas. We'd been texting, flirting. I was feeling lonely. You were always working. Always distracted. You never looked at me the way you used to. I didn't realize I had to keep auditioning to be your husband, I said. She flinched. That's not fair. Neither is marrying another man while you're still wearing my ring. We sat there for a long time. She cried. Said all the things you'd expect. How it didn't mean anything. How she was sorry. How she wanted to fix it. I watched her like I was watching someone I didn't recognize. Someone I used to love, maybe. But not anymore. The worst part? A small, quiet part of me wanted to forgive her. Not because she deserved it, but because I missed the way things used to be. The comfort. The familiarity. But reality didn't care about comfort. By the end of that day, I called my lawyer again. Told him we were moving forward. That I wanted everything handled clean and quick. Sierra didn't fight it. She left that afternoon, packed a suitcase, and walked out of the house like a stranger. Over the next few weeks, everything unfolded like a slow-burning disaster. Her job caught wind of everything. Ron called me directly one evening, something I didn't expect. He apologized for what happened, said he didn't mean to make a scene at the party. Apparently, HR had to open a formal review. Alec, it turned out, was a vendor for their company, which meant Sierra's relationship with him wasn't just personally messy, it was a legal liability. She was suspended indefinitely. Her family started calling me. Her mother sent me long texts about how everyone makes mistakes and marriage is sacred. Her sister, Megan, left a voicemail calling me vindictive, saying I didn't need to humiliate her publicly. But none of them had been in my shoes. None of them had found that iPad. None of them had looked into the eyes of the person they trusted most and realized they were just another actor in someone else's drama. I stayed quiet, focused on work, took on more contracts, ate a lot of takeout, went on longer walks with the dog. Some nights I couldn't sleep, my mind racing with what-ifs and should-haves. Other nights I slept too much, like I was trying to skip whole days at a time. People started reaching out to me, friends, acquaintances, even a few of Sierra's coworkers. They wanted to know if it was true. Some wanted details. Others just wanted to say they were sorry, that they never expected that from her. I didn't give them anything. I wasn't interested in being the center of some small-town incident. But the whispers spread anyway. Boise isn't that big, especially the professional circles. Word got around fast. Her birthday party had become the stuff of local legend. People called it the Vegas bombshell or that winery disaster. It was weird being the guy everyone suddenly knew about. I didn't ask for any of it. A few weeks after she moved out, I came home to find an envelope on my porch. No return address. Just my name, in her handwriting. Inside was a letter. Pages of it. Scribbled in pen. Apologies. Explanations. Memories. She wrote about the early days in Seattle, our first trip to Cannon Beach, the night we ate tacos in the rain because everything else was closed. She wrote about how she lost herself, how she didn't know how to come back. I read it once, folded it, and put it in a drawer. I didn't respond, because by then, something had shifted in me. Something deep. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't even sad. I was just done. The days rolled by, slow and muddy, like the thaw season after a harsh winter. December in Boise is that strange in-between where the sky is almost always gray, but it doesn't snow enough to feel magical, just cold enough to remind you that warmth is temporary. I spent most of my time working, walking the dog, and avoiding anyone who knew both Sierra and me, which, as it turns out, was most people. The office holiday party was coming up, and I had zero intention of going. I hadn't said much to anyone about what happened, even though I could tell people were dancing around it. A few coworkers looked at me like I was made of glass. Others avoided eye contact altogether. One of the newer hires, a 20-something who still thought beer pong was a personality trait, actually asked me, "So, was that whole name tag thing real?" I didn't answer, just stared at him long enough to make him regret asking. I was getting good at silence. One night, about a week before Christmas, I found myself driving past the winery. I wasn't planning to. I'd taken a longer route home from a client meeting and ended up on that same stretch of road, the one with the giant wooden signs advertising tastings and private events. The lights were still up from the party. Twinkling strands looped around the posts, glowing soft gold in the fog. For a second, I slowed down. My fingers tapped the steering wheel. My mind went back to that night, not just to the moment I walked in, but the way she looked at me when I said her name in front of all those people. The way her lips parted, the brief hitch in her throat, the absolute stillness in her body. It wasn't fear of getting caught. It was the realization that she already had been, and there was no walking it back. I didn't stop. I didn't pull in. Just kept driving, watching the lights fade in the rearview mirror until they were gone. About 2 days before Christmas, I got another letter. This one wasn't handwritten. It was typed, neat, professional. From Alec. I didn't expect that. He apologized. Said he didn't fully understand the situation at first. That Sierra told him she was separated and that he never would have gone along with it if he'd known the truth. He said he was embarrassed and ashamed, that the Vegas wedding wasn't supposed to mean anything, that it was a joke that turned into a disaster. He asked if I would be willing to talk. I threw the letter away. The very idea that he thought we could just have a chat, like we were two guys who had a bad poker night and wanted to shake hands afterward, was insulting. He wasn't just some naive stranger who fell into a mess. He went along with it. Repeatedly. Willingly. He slept with my wife. He toasted champagne with her in a bathrobe and signed a marriage certificate while she still wore mine. No, Alec. We are not talking. Sierra texted me on Christmas Eve. I hadn't heard from her in 2 weeks. Can we meet? Just talk. No drama. I just miss you. And I know I messed up. But I can't fix anything if I don't try. Please. I stared at the screen for a long time. Then I put the phone face down and walked away. I didn't want to spend another second in the ghost of that relationship. Instead, I cooked dinner for myself, something I hadn't done in months. Grilled a steak, roasted potatoes, poured a glass of red. The dog curled up by my feet while I watched an old Clint Eastwood movie on mute. It was peaceful. Sad, but peaceful. New Year's came and went. I didn't go to any parties. Didn't make resolutions. Just kept moving. The divorce process was slow, but steady. Paperwork, signatures, asset lists. We didn't have much to split. No kids. No shared business. Just a house, a few accounts, some furniture. I let her keep most of it. Not because I was generous, but because I didn't want any reminders of what we'd built together. I didn't want to lie in the bed where she'd texted him. Didn't want to sit on the couch where she'd smiled at me while thinking about someone else. I wanted it all gone. I started looking for new places. Small, simple, one-bedroom rentals near the foothills or over by North End. Somewhere quiet. Somewhere without memory. My agent, Barb, an older woman who'd been through 2 divorces herself, was kind in that blunt Idaho way. You want clean lines and not unnecessary, she said, flipping through listings. I get it. Let's find you something with a good porch. You need somewhere to sit with coffee, and remember you're free now. She wasn't wrong. One afternoon, she showed me a place on 17th Street. Tiny front yard, blue shutters, a slightly tilted mailbox that gave it charm. Inside, the walls were bare, the floor creaked in spots, and the bedroom barely fit a queen bed. But it was mine. It didn't belong to any story but the one I was about to write. I signed a lease. The next day, I started packing. I didn't tell Sierra I was moving. She didn't need to know. I boxed up what I wanted. My books, some clothes, a couple framed photos from before things fell apart. I left behind the wedding album, the matching mugs, the anniversary gifts. I didn't need souvenirs from someone else's performance. The last time I saw her was unplanned. It was early February. I was at a hardware store picking up a coat rack and some wall anchors. She was in the paint aisle, holding a color swatch and talking to a clerk about primer. She didn't see me right away, but when she turned and our eyes met, she froze. For a moment, neither of us moved. Then she gave me a small, hesitant wave. I didn't wave back. I just turned and walked away. And that, for me, was the real closure, not some long dramatic conversation, not some teary scene under dim lighting. Just that moment of silence. That space between who we were and who we'd become. Because some people don't get a second chance. Some mistakes cost everything. And some names, once said in certain rooms, can never be unsaid. The room went dead silent. You could have heard a pin drop, or maybe the sound of my wife's career crumbling. Her eyes darted around, searching for an escape route. But the truth had already started echoing off the champagne glasses. Turns out, secret Vegas weddings don't stay secret forever. Especially not when your other husband walks into your birthday party wearing a custom name tag. Her boss wiped his mouth, still stunned. You actually married someone else? She stammered. It was a joke, we were drunk, I didn't think, but you did, I said, my tone cool but deliberate. And you never annulled it. You just came back and pretended like it never happened. Like it never happened. The guests murmured. Her parents were wide-eyed. And her boss? He was already pulling out his phone. It was the beginning of the end for her job, her web of lies, and the version of her that thought consequences were optional. As for me, I walked out into the night air feeling lighter than I had in months. Truth tastes good when it's served cold and delivered with a smile. Happy birthday indeed.